Easter isn't for sissies. It's about glory and fear. Be prepared, for what you're about to hear may change how you view Easter forever. My name is Vincent Klug. I'm the pastor of Louisa Christian Church, and we're so glad you're joining us today. Easter is about glory and fear. You see, there's something terrible that can be glorious, and there's something glorious that can be terrifying. Let me say that again. There's something terrible that can be glorious, and there's something glorious that can be terrifying. Well, Easter doesn't start out with an empty tomb. It starts out with a cross and a Savior. So let me take you to Mark 15:24. To these four words, when put together, is one of the most important sentences in the Bible. It reads like this: and they crucified him. Yeah, Jesus went to the cross for us. And we're going to take a look today at how the terrible crucifixion is more glorious than you would ever imagine. Jesus was in glory as he reigned on the cross. And he was in glory through the mockery of the high priest. So while he was on the cross, people were mocking him. And Mark 15:31 says, the leading priests and teachers of the law also mocked Jesus. He saved others, but he can't save himself. You know, as someone who's considered a religious leader, I find their words staggering. But what really gets me is the irony in their words. He saved others, but he can't save himself. What they said was true, but not how they meant it. He saved others, but he can't save himself. Jesus can't save himself because he's saving others, you see? Even from the cross, Jesus is reigning through mockery. All right, let's look at another aspect of Jesus reigning on the cross. Jesus was in glory as he reigned on the cross next to two thieves. Well, that takes us back to Mark 10. See, in Mark 10, a couple of the disciples came to him and said, Master, we have a favor. And Jesus said, what is it you'd like to ask? And they said, well, when you come in your glory, we want to sit on your left and your right-hand side. When you come in your glory, pick us to be on your left-hand side and your right-hand side. And Jesus said, you don't know what you're asking. Can you drink the bitter cup of suffering? He continued, to sit at my right hand or left is not for me to grant. These places belong to those for whom they've been prepared. Wow. Who would think that those two places were prepared for two thieves? While Jesus was in glory, he was crucified next to two thieves. See, Jesus was reigning from the cross, even between two thieves. Jesus was reigning from the cross even as his followers were hiding in fear. We have in Mark 15:41 that the women who were at the crucifixion were at a distance. Something's left out of that sentence if you take a look. Where are the men? Well, we can see that in John 20:19, the men were hiding in fear. For the disciples, for the followers of Jesus, those who left their way to support themselves, they were fishermen, they left their village, they left their family, they have a reputation of following this Jesus now who was shamefully crucified. Their world has fallen apart. Their hope was gone. I wonder if they were asking themselves, has God failed? Was Jesus not really the Messiah? Was he not in charge? I think we can find some comfort in that. And here's why. In Zechariah 13:7, it says, strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. Thousands of years before the crucifixion, it was prophesied that the disciples would hide. They would run and hide. You see, Jesus was reigning even when his followers were faltering, even when they were full of fear and they were hiding. Jesus was still reigning. You know, we're going through something right now with this pandemic, and it may get worse. But our emotions don't have to get the best of us. But if they do, I think we can find some comfort that even when the disciples felt hopeless, they were depressed, they were struggling, they were hiding, Jesus was still reigning from the cross. So let's get back to where we started, and Jesus was crucified. One of my favorite theologians, D.A. Carson, in his YouTube lecture on Mark 15, says something like this: about this sentence, and they crucified him. This brief, grim sentence represents the most stupendous redemptive act that has ever happened in the universe. You see, when Jesus was on the cross, it wasn't just the way he suffered. It wasn't that he was flogged, that he fell 3 times, he was beaten so bad. It wasn't the nails in his hands and his feet, or that for every breath he had to push his ripped up back against the wood of the cross and pull on the nails in his feet and his hand. It wasn't any of that. It was that moment in time when he yelled out, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani. My God, why have you forsaken me? For a moment in time, Jesus was separated from the Father. He was in hell because he had my sin and your sin on him, as it says in 1 Corinthians 5:21, that he who knew no sin, Jesus never sinned, he who knew no sin became sin, so that we could be the righteousness of God. Jesus went to the cross for you and for me. And at the end of this message, I would like to invite you to pray to accept him as your Savior. We don't know when our time will come to an end. And Jesus has gone to prepare a place for us. And like Paul said, no matter what you suffer in Romans 8:18, no matter how much you suffer, nothing, it doesn't even compare to the glory that awaits us. I invite you to accept Jesus as your Savior later in this message. So we talked about when the terrible is glorious. What about when the glorious is terrifying? You know, the power of the resurrection is so glorious that it will wipe away all your fears.